Where all does this go? Good morning. Thank you for joining us live here on India Today. I'm Akshita Nandagopal joining you this morning with a roundup of all the top stories that we're tracking here on India Today. We get you essentially in the next few minutes the top national as well as international stories. Let me begin with what's happening in Afghanistan, something that we've been tracking very closely here on India Today. The deadline for the US troops pullout ends tonight. But before that, the news that came in overnight is that the United States, and they've confirmed this, have completed their withdrawal. They've completed their pullout of all the troops, all their boots on the ground in Afghanistan. There's a very telling picture, and you can, look at our social media handles. You can tune in to India Today TV to see that picture that US has posted of the last soldier as he made his way out of Kabul. This is a picture of him boarding a C-17. This is Major General Chris Donahue. He is the one who was the last soldier of the United States to be in Kabul. Now, since the US pulled out their last military aircraft, again a transport plane, took off from the Kabul airport, the Taliban have begun celebrating, because this means essentially that they now formally have 100% control over what happens in Afghanistan. So you saw these very telling pictures of, again, Taliban fighters entering the Kabul airport with no US troops there providing security or anything of the sort. Taliban fighters were inside. They were firing in the air, celebratory firing essentially. So that's how Taliban decided to mark the moment that United States ended its 20-year war in Afghanistan. After 2 decades, not a single soldier of the United States is there. But there's also a lot of diplomatic repercussions to this. The US has said very clearly that right now they're not going to have an embassy in Kabul. They're moving their operations to Doha, and then we'll wait and see. We'll take a call as and when things progress to decide whether they're going to have an embassy in Kabul or not. As far as the Taliban is concerned, now we'll really know what Taliban rule is all about in Afghanistan. They've been talking about a renewed front, about them not standing for what they did earlier when they ruled Afghanistan, but now is when you'll know whether that's really going to happen or not. But as far as diplomacy is concerned, they claim that they want to have good relations with all countries. They want to have diplomatic ties with India particularly. The Taliban have been stressing time and again that they want to ensure they resume trade operations with India. They're also saying that they want India to complete all the reconstruction activity and the infrastructure projects that we took up as an investment to help the people of Afghanistan. So the Taliban is trying hard to ensure that they set up good ties with in fact India. But at this point, what is our stand? Well, the government, just like the United States and just like most other countries, has decided to essentially adopt a wait and watch policy to see what the situation is on the ground before we indulge in any sort of dialogue or any sort of talks with the Taliban. So while Taliban is making it very clear that they want to have dialogue with India and want to ensure that there are strong trade ties which existed before their takeover, now India at this point is making it very clear that we're just going to see how things play out before really going ahead and taking a decision. So that's how things really stand in Afghanistan. We'll continue, of course, getting you all the latest updates on the troop pullout, what it means for the people of Afghanistan. Remember, evacuations now end, which means those who are there for good now, and they'll have to deal with the Taliban takeover, the Taliban rule. What exactly will that look like? That's something that you can track here on India Today as well. I just also want to tell you about the other stories that we're tracking this morning. One is, of course, on the COVID front. We will be getting you the latest numbers from the Health Ministry. It's not out just yet. Will be out in the next 30 minutes or so. But as far as Kerala is concerned, I know a lot of you have been very, very concerned about the situation there. A lot of questions about whether the third wave has already hit Kerala. There's been a decline in cases, which is good news. Keep our fingers crossed it remains that way. Cases have gone down further below the 20,000 mark. So it means that now finally you're seeing cases coming down again. Not enough. We of course have a long way to go, because if you look at the other states, after Kerala worst affected is Maharashtra, which is about 4,000 odd. So 4,000 versus about 20,000, you get to see really what the difference is. And clearly Kerala needs to do something here. They've already imposed a night curfew. It began last night. That's going to remain in effect as one of the steps that the Kerala government is taking to ensure that things are brought under control at the earliest. Amid this pandemic, there's also been a huge debate over schools reopening, over essentially unlock moves being made by different states. as we speak, several states have decided that they're going to open schools, and there are guidelines issued in different states. Like in Delhi, they've said that schools will open from tomorrow in a staggered way, of course, for classes 9 to 12. Keeping that in mind, is it really safe? That's the biggest concern. Parents are voicing, teachers are worried, students too don't know what to do, especially in a circumstance where you don't have a vaccine for kids yet. What authorities and experts have said is that, vaccination of school staff is very, very important. You can't keep schools shut forever. Yes, you need to open up, but you need to do it cautiously. So there are steps being taken to ensure caution, but a lot of experts like Dr. Naresh Trehan, who we've spoken to, have warned that we shouldn't right away go ahead and open schools in a full-blown way. Do it in a staggered manner and ensure very, very strictly that all COVID protocol is maintained, which means also monitoring is very, very important. So that is something that there's a lot of talk about, and on India Today, we're also putting out data about how schools opening has affected kids so far. Well, the infection rate has climbed up in states where schools have opened up or not. That has also thrown up some very, very interesting figures as well. So that is something that we are tracking very closely here on India Today. I'd also like to just update you on a story that's come in from Bengaluru of 7 people dying overnight. This is an accident that's been reported in Bengaluru city. For those of you who know Bengaluru well, this has happened in Koramangala. What we know is that a speeding Audi hit a light pole. 7 people who were there in the car, all of them have died. Now, we understand that 6 people died on the spot, 1 on the way to the hospital. We're also putting out pictures of really the mangled remains of the car. Shows you how fast it was going. But that's something that we're also tracking closely here on India Today. Those are the stories you need to know about. Besides that, of course, what's happening in the Tokyo Paralympics. We're keeping our fingers crossed that we're going to be getting more medals today. Hopefully, we'll break another record like we did yesterday with so many medals coming our way. Wouldn't be wrong to say really that it's raining medals for us. Our para-athletes doing us so incredibly proud. So that's something that we will be tracking through the day as well. For the moment, thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great day.